Yo, what's good everyone? Today I'm going to be breaking down some of my favorite cash game plays for this Week 2 NFL DraftKings main slate. Let's dive right into it. And like I always do here in these videos, I'm going to give you a high-level overview of my cheat sheet, breaking down some of my favorite cash game plays here for this Week 2 NFL DraftKings main slate. But before we get into that, everyone, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. It's completely free to do, and we're trying to hit 5,000 subs here on this channel by the end of the month. I also want to mention here, I do run a free Discord channel. You can see that mentioned above. If you want to join that, there's a link to do so in the description below, as well as in the pinned comment below. We have over 800 people in the Discord today talking multiple different sports for DFS and sports betting, primarily MLB, NFL, and NHL, which is on the horizon. So again, if you want to join that, it's completely free to do. And you might notice here, I'm rocking some Mulligan Masters gear right now. You can see that mentioned above. It's another YouTube channel that I run with some of my best friends, really more on the entertainment side of things, playing some golf. So if you got some free time this weekend and want to check that out, I'd also appreciate that as well. But with that being said, let's dive into the cheat sheet here. We're going to kick it off at the quarterback position like we always do. Obviously, with the Brock Purdy news here this week, he will not be playing. It really opens up the door here at the quarterback position with Mac Jones. He's the bare minimum $4,000 in a relatively good matchup here against the New Orleans Saints. Now, the issue is that a lot of his pass catchers are banged up right now. No Brandon Ayuk, obviously. George Kittle's now on the IR. Juwan Jennings left the game last week, so we're really kind of depending on two guys there, Ricky Pearsall and Christian McCaffrey, but we're looking, 3x is what I always mention here when it comes to my cash lineup. Shooting for 150 DraftKings points. If you do that week in and week out, you're going to finish in the money more times than not. So that's 12 DraftKings points out of Mac Jones, again, in a good matchup. I absolutely think he's in play. I also don't mind spending up for Josh Allen here this week. And look, we got Lamar Jackson, we got Jalen Hurts. Honestly, I wouldn't blame you for playing any one of those guys. And Lamar does have the highest implied team total here, or the Baltimore Ravens do, against the Cleveland Browns. He's $100 cheaper than Josh Allen. But I just look at the upside that Allen showed not only in week 1, but really all of last season. He's got a safe floor, he's got a high ceiling, and a good matchup that has some shootout potential against the New York Jets. So I went with Josh Allen as my preferred spend-up play at the quarterback position. But again, if you went with Lamar here, I'd have no problem with that. Again, I don't mind Jalen Hurts either, but he's going to rank third out of those three for me. And then honestly, I think Caleb Williams is in play here. Another game that has shootout potential against the Detroit Lions. He came out in that game last week against the Minnesota Vikings. He looked fabulous on that first drive and then just went downhill after that. But this is a game that they should be playing from behind. I suspect he's going to be throwing the ball quite a bit, and I like the rushing upside that he showed in that game against Minnesota. So at $5,400, I think he's in play for cash games too. Now moving on to the running backs here, and the good news is, everyone, Christian McCaffrey looks back. I don't know if he's fully healthy or not, but he touched the ball 31 times in that game last week against the Seattle Seahawks. If that's not an indicator to being healthy, I don't know what is. And again, I just talked about all the pass catchers that are out here for the 49ers this week. McCaffrey should touch the ball another 25 plus times in this game at a solid price here of $7,500 in a good matchup against New Orleans. He's probably a staple in my cash lineup this week. Now, I did go back and forth between Devon Achane and Chase Brown here in the upper 6K range. Ultimately landed on Chase Brown here. I just like the matchup a little bit better playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think there's some shootout potential in that game as well. He's heavily involved in the running game, heavily involved in the passing game, really game script proof. So I do like Chase Brown over Devon Achane, but you can see I got Achane here as an honorable mention. I by no means mind that matchup against the New England Patriots. I just really hated how that Miami offense looked last week against Indianapolis. And then Travis Etienne here. Man, he kind of got the bell cow work in week 1. Obviously, that game got delayed a little bit, so it slowed things down. They had to go in, came back an hour and a half, 2 hours later. So it was a weird game in general. But again, I love the opportunity that we saw Travis Etienne get. Maybe Liam Cohen is trying to turn him into the Bucky Irving that we saw last season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, I do like this matchup here against the Cincinnati Bengals. I usually don't like playing two running backs from the same game. That usually doesn't make a lot of sense. But considering both these guys are heavily involved in the passing game as well, and considering the price here for Travis Etienne, I think we can play them both in our cash lineup. If he gets 15-20 touches in this game, he should hit value at that price. So that's the running backs that I like here. Let's move on to the wide receivers. And I really went back and forth here as my top tier wide receiver play this week as well. I really wanted to put Jamar Chase here, but being that I'm a little heavier on Chase Brown, I put Jamar Chase as an honorable mention. That's not to say you can't play both of those guys in your cash lineup. I certainly think you can. Both offer enough upside to where they can hit that 3x value, but I think I prefer CeeDee Lamb here over Jamar Chase, considering I will be playing Chase Brown in my cash lineup this week. And CeeDee saw, 13 targets last week. He had that huge drop at the end of the game against the Eagles that might have cost them the win, and he was very aware of that in his post-game interview. I expect a big game here in this matchup, divisional matchup as well, against the New York Giants, so he's my preferred top-tier play. But if you go with Jamar Chase, I have no problem with that. Again, a really good matchup against Jacksonville. I like Puka Nacua here as well in this matchup against the Titans. Probably going to be tough to fit both these guys and CMC in the same cash lineup, but Nacua just looks like a guy who should see 10-plus targets game in and game out this season. So considering the price and matchup, he's cash game viable. Jackson Smith-Njigba, 13 targets last week. The clear-cut number one pass catcher with the new quarterback in Seattle was Sam Darnold. Now, on paper, it certainly looks like a tougher matchup on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That Steelers defense has some playmakers on the back end, but we also saw Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson, and Breece Hall kind of have a day against that defense in week one, so I'm not overly concerned, again, considering the price here at $6,000 for a guy who saw 13 targets just last week. And then Hollywood Brown here, we need to keep an eye on this because I was not expecting Xavier Worthy to play here in week 2 after separating his shoulder in week 1, but he is questionable heading into Sunday. He had a limited practice on Thursday. I haven't seen an update on Friday yet, so again, we need to keep an eye on that. But if Worthy is out, that's going to put Hollywood Brown as the number one wide receiver in this offense. Another guy who could easily see double-digit targets at a really good price here of $5,200. And then Chris Olave. Honestly, I wanted to put him in as one of my favorite cash game plays, but I'm a little higher on Juwan Johnson, who you can see listed under the tight ends, being that he's $1,300 cheaper and saw double-digit targets himself last week. As a matter of fact, he led all tight ends in routes run in week 1. I was not expecting that. Someone brought it to my attention in the first look, so shout out to you, my friend. But yeah, like I said, I'm a little higher on Juwan Johnson, $1,300 cheaper, and I don't love the idea of playing 2 Saints pass catchers in my cash lineup, albeit they're very cheap. I just don't love depending on Spencer Rattler like that. And then speaking of the tight ends here this week, if you're looking to spend up, I do love this matchup for Trey McBride at home playing against the Carolina Panthers. He could easily go for 20-plus points in that matchup. Now, you'll probably have to play Mac Jones if you spend up for a guy like Trey McBride, because we want to spend up for the CeeDee Lambs, right? The Christian McCaffreys, maybe Jamar Chase, and you're not going to be able to spend up for those guys, Trey McBride and a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson. So if you're looking to spend up here at the tight end position, you'll probably have to go with someone like Caleb Williams and or Mac Jones at the quarterback position, which is why I like spending down myself here, going with Juwan Johnson. That's not to say I won't play Mac Jones with Juwan Johnson and spend up at the other positions, but ultimately, this is one of the positions I just prefer to spend down on. And again, I just talked about it. Led all tight ends in week 1 in routes run, double-digit targets, decent matchup here against the 49ers at home. Yeah, $3,600, definitely do like that. And then everybody's talking about Harold Hannafin Jr. here, $3,100 for the Cleveland Browns. Same guy brought up him when we were talking about Juwan Jennings in the first look. I have concern here. Now, he could come out and get another, 8-plus targets in this game and have himself a day at a good price, but just from what I've read this week, it sounds like they still want to get David Njoku more involved. You have the pass catchers with Cedric Tillman and Jerry Jeudy, and a tougher matchup here against Baltimore. So I put him as an honorable mention because I can't blame anybody for playing him at that price, but I think it's another wait and see, one more week for me before I put him in as my favorite play. And then when it comes to the defenses, I would prefer to spend up for the Rams here this week in my cash lineup. They have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL, probably a top 3 defensive offensive line unit. They should be able to create pressure and get after a rookie quarterback in Cam Ward. We saw the Denver Broncos do that just last week. Speaking of the Denver Broncos, that offense did not look great at home last week against the Tennessee Titans, and the Colts at home looked pretty damn good against the Miami Dolphins. Maybe the Dolphins are just that bad to where they made the Colts defensive unit look really good, but at $2,600, we don't need much for them to hit value. I also don't mind the Saints here at home going up against the 49ers. We talked about how beat up that 49ers offense is right now. And then we got the Tennessee Titans on that opposite game against the Rams. You know what? The Rams didn't look bad last week. They got the win against the Houston Texans, but that offense didn't look fantastic either. And that Titans defense actually got after Bo Nix of the Denver Broncos offense. So again, for a cheaper defense at this price, I don't mind it. Alright everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great weekend here, folks, and let's win some money on this Week 2 NFL main slate.